We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, Matt Leck. Wait, were we going to do this on Monday? We going to do this on Monday, or are we going to do this today? Or are we going to do it on Monday?
I mean, I think apparently on Thursday, Binder last Thursday when I was out, he accidentally revealed the name of our new producer.
Nobody caught on. People have to
on?
go back into the deep dig into the archives.
All right.
There you go.
Breadcrumbs.
Where should we start here?
Oh yeah.
Which one is this?
5 is maybe it's good.
Oh yeah. Okay. We were mentioning with Digby in the first half of the program that this signal gate is important because it's the first opportunity for a crack within the Trump administration. And it really does not appear that there is one, but it is putting them on their back heels. Had this happened in the first Trump administration, there would be leaks. People on the call, people who thought the call was a bad idea, people who are fighting against these people in the administration, but they're all in the same sort of crony wavelength, if you will, within the Trump administration now. But you can see that people even outside of the, within and without of the administration are getting a little bit uptight about this.
I mean, Steven Crowder was criticizing it. Like you had
the media's all mad that they can't talk about the good things about mass deportations and stuff because they're getting embarrassed on the national security front.
Laura Ingraham seemed a little queasy too. Like, this is inexcusable.
It shows a tremendous amount of incompetence.
Yes.
So that even the criminals can criticize it. Like, you guys. This is amateur hour,
right,
for them. And so there's a lot of criticism coming a lot of ways. And this is good because anything that creates a little bit more friction for the Trump administration is helpful on everything else. This is Caitlin Collins interviewing VA Secretary Doug Collins. No relation.
Do you believe that a mistake was made here, though, to have this conversation, to add a reporter, and to have it on an unsupported, classified group setting?
Caitlin, as I've just told you, I've just answered the question. I wasn't part of it. And, I'm not going to speculate more than what the president's already talked about and those who've been involved have talked about. But we'd love to talk about the veterans.
Yeah, and I do have questions about the veterans, but given what we saw with the group chat and how this was used, you are a member of the cabinet. You obviously know these other members, several of them who were in there. Is this typical for the cabinet to have conversations over Signal? Is this something that you use?
Well, Caitlin, since you undoubtedly do not want to talk about the VA, I have a question as VA Secretary. As Cabinet, I want to ask you, because I've been curious about this, because my job is to take care of veterans, and I would like to know why CNN is hostile to veterans, especially one in Florida.
Can you
where
pause
just had
it?
a $5 million debt.
I'm sorry. That is insanely telling. Yeah. That, first of all, Caitlin Collins, great question, because he doesn't want to answer it.
Because of course they are.
We are getting increasing reporting that they've been using Signal basically since Trump won because they want to avoid what, according to The Independent, is basically Trump basically saying that in 2016, his transition team, they used official government channels like they're supposed to do. And then those communications were used against him in the Mueller probe. So it seems like they're doing this across various agencies. I mean, the war plan stuff is so egregious, but that's why he goes on the offensive about CNN and how they don't care about the veterans. When, by the way, there's a story on NBC News the other day that Doge cut a office manager at a VA center in Wyoming where the veteran suicide rate is 50% higher than the national average, and she was fired last month. So spare me, or not last month, recently, spare me, Doug Collins, on how CNN doesn't care about veterans.
And I would like to know why CNN is hostile to veterans, especially one in Florida, where you just had a $5 million defamation suit. taking offense at a veteran who was trying to help people. In fact, one of your employees actually said, we're going to nail him. I have a question for you, Kaylin. Is that employee still employed? Are you really concerned about veterans? So if we don't want to talk about veterans now, you want to talk about everything else, I'd like to hear from CNN as the veteran cabinet secretary, why CNN seems to have a problem with veterans.
Well, Mr. Secretary, respectfully, my question was about whether or not you as a member of the cabinet use this. And respectfully, I'm conducting the investigation. And I do have a lot of questions for you on Veterans Affairs, but I don't think it would be unwarranted to ask
What you want to do is talk
about
the subject I've already answered. And if you want to continue this like this, that's fine. But there are VA employees who are working very hard.
I just want to say he didn't answer the question of, do you have chats like this on Signal often?
Oh, no, that is exactly why he got this indignant. I mean, understand, he goes into this with that in his back pocket if he needs it. He does not, and he could actually wait. I mean, he could have had that in his back pocket and like, if I need it in this one, I use it. If I don't need it in this one, I save it for some other time. Even picking up his accent.
What you want to do is you want to talk about a subject. What you want to do is talk about a subject that I've already answered. And if you want to continue this like this, that's fine. But there are VA employees who are working very hard. There are veterans who get their care from the VA and they get their benefits from the VA. And it does me no good to speculate on something that I've already asked and answered. So I've asked and answered your question. Why don't you answer mine? Are you still, is this person still employed who said they were going to nail one of my veterans? Who you had to do a $5 million award from a jury because of defamation, and then you settled the case. Answer my question.
Respectfully, sir, I'm asking the questions here, and I have no involvement in referencing there. But if you don't want to answer the question about whether or not it's commonplace for secretaries in the cabinet to use Signal.
Oh,
he doesn't answer.
He doesn't answer it.
I think that's spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, that's telling in and of itself.
I mean, it's quite clear. They're doing this, right? I mean,
yes.
The answer is yes. And good for her for staying on that point.
Yep.
They are, listen, they're worried about it and they're trying to spin it around and they want to avoid talking about this. Here is Pam Bondi, and she is on, where is she on? Wait, was that the Signals one?
I guess this was when she was speaking to reporters. I don't know.
There's two in the chat. I can't figure out which is which.
Right. So she's speaking here to reporters. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the event was, but this is, I guess, what Sam's referring to here. One sec.
The Signals chat controversy that's going on. Is DOJ involved at this point? If so, why? If not, why not?
Well, first, it was sensitive information, not classified, and inadvertently released. And what we should be talking about is it was a very successful mission. Our world is now safer because of that mission. We're not going to comment any further on that. If you want to talk about classified information, talk about what was at Hillary Clinton's home that she was trying to bleach bit, talk about the classified documents in Joe Biden's garage.
Just don't want to really be honest with you here. The bleach bidding thing that they're talking about with Hillary Clinton was over 10 years ago now.
Hillary Clinton hasn't been in elected office since February 2013.
Joe Biden informed the government that there were documents in his garage and immediately handed them over without having to be asked, whereas Donald Trump hid these documents on multiple occasions and refused to hand them over.
Even Mike Pence returned them voluntarily. So it's not just a bipartisan thing, it's a Trump thing.
But this is, incidentally, the chief law enforcement officer of the United States who's supposed to be completely above political influence. Go ahead.
Talk about the classified documents in Joe Biden's garage that Hunter Biden had access to. This was not classified information, and we are very pleased with the results of that operation and that the entire world is safer because of it. Thank you all very much.
The entire world is safer? Really?
They killed civilians. They killed multiple children in that strike.
and there's been strike after strike after strike over the past 8 or 9 days. The entire world was worried about the ability of the Houthis to threaten the entire world. Fascinating.
I mean, frankly, what the Houthis were doing is, I guess, doing something to keep. I'm not saying that they're making the world safer, but it's certainly more than what the Trump administration is doing with those strikes, because the blockade is there to put pressure on Israel to stop committing genocide.
We're bombing them to minimize the effects of Israel's genocide on the European, particularly Europe.
And you know how we know that their stated reason is kind of matching up with their actions is because when there was a ceasefire, the blockade stopped.
Here is Bondi on Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham was talking about this apparently. This is one from last night. It's not a number. It's in the chat. You got to scroll up, way up, 1221.
And that is that changing in the government now, though? Is Signal not going to be used, or is it going to be used going forward? Are you aware of it?
I think Signal's a very safe way to communicate. I don't think foreign adversaries are able to hack Signal, as far as I know.
And
Pause it for a second. This is astonishing because we now have, first off, it is not legal for them to be using Signal and have it on auto delete. There is absolutely no controversy about that. The law is they need to maintain these records. That's just the law, period. You can maybe finagle around whether it's really a breach of the law to use a private device and to use Signal. But the law is they need to retain this information. And we know for a fact from that leaked chat that it was set to auto delete within 4 weeks. So that is, if you were the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, would be a sticking point for you. Also, if you're the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, you would also know that the issue is not that Signal can be hacked. The issue is that because you're not allowed to put them on government issue phones, they are then on private phones.
Yep.
And the issue is that private phones can be hacked, and you can tell what is being typed into Signal
via keystrokes by bugging. And we now know from this week's reporting in Der Spiegel in Germany that both Waltz and Hegseth's personal phone numbers were available for this paper to find, meaning that they could have, that's how that hack could happen, because their phone numbers were available. And passwords too, for that matter.
Communicate. I don't think foreign adversaries are able to hack Signal, as far as I know.
And maybe people just have to keep an eye on their contact list a little bit more carefully going forward.
No, that's not it. That's not it. Stop trying to hide your communications from federal oversight and from historians and from future legal action. That's the problem.
It's crazy that they'd even mention Hillary Clinton in this, because it kind of shows them as giant hypocrites that they were so concerned about a private email server, and now they all have basically private messaging servers in their pockets at all times.
The only thing that I appreciate about them bringing that up over and over again is that hopefully some of their showing that level of hypocrisy will motivate the press to continue and stay on this, because they must realize it's sort of like, it's like essentially the refs seeing that the game switched because they got a little too overzealous in covering, in calling stuff that was physical on one end of the court. Now they got to make up calls here. Although I have to say, this seems to be both indicative of a much wider problem and showing far more incompetence. I assume you guys played yesterday the footage from Somerville, Mass, right? Mm-hmm. That came out in time. That footage is incredibly chilling to watch these cops come up. Well, not cops, these ICE guys. And incidentally, you don't have the same responsibilities in terms of like obeying an ICE agent as you would a cop, particularly obviously if you're a citizen. If you're not a citizen, there's a lot more vulnerability, but understand that these people are going to be they're going to do whatever they want to do in that moment. Let's go to this Marco Rubio clip that is in the chat, 1229. We heard a lot about, and we've seen now multiple reports of the people who were shipped down to this El Salvador gulag not being, in one instance, being a legal refugee in this country. We now have seen instances of people having a tattoo that was in support of autism awareness getting shipped down. We have heard reports of women and non-Venezuelans being shipped down there. And, you know, in El Salvador, they only agreed to take Venezuelans into this gulag. So they were shipped back up.
It's human trafficking.
All of these people obviously received no due process. So we don't know if any of them were, gang members, never, aside from the fact that just being in a gang in and of itself is not a crime. There is a wide berth for whom they can deport, but it is supposed to be done with due process. Here is Marco Rubio finally admitting what everybody has known now, and certainly most rational people suspected early on, which is that they don't know who was on those planes. They have a good guess at some of them, but we don't know.
Right. Secretary Rubio, when you and President Bukele, you mentioned Tren de Agua several times, when you and President Bukele negotiated the deal to transfer the U.S. deportees to his prison in Secot, did you discuss any provisions to ensure that individuals mistakenly identified as gang members would have access to legal recourse, or that they can secure their release if they are wrongly?
Yeah, we have that list was carefully vetted, provided to us by Homeland Security. We have confidence in it. What we negotiated is the reality that they in El Salvador comply with all the international requirements for imprisonment. So we sent them people, with a combination of people, gang members, people we knew were involved in activities that were not productive to the United States. All of them removable in terms of our laws, all of them. Every single one of them was someone who was removable from the United States, irrespective, and MS-13 members, many of whom are Salvadoran, that we had identified as MS-13 members that they had helped us identify as well. And so it was a combination of people that we sent. And, we may send more. We'll see.
A combination.
He's trying to cover.
Medley.
He's trying to cover here. And we don't know. The absence of due process for these people means that we don't know if they were removable. It is the case that the United States government has the right, broadly speaking, to deport a lot of people if they are not citizens. But we don't know who these people are because there was absolutely no attempt to decipher who they were, except for the fact that they had a tattoo.
This is the example that we were just citing. Mother Jones, good reporting here. One of the men rendition to El Salvador's Nero Alvarado, who was working in Dallas as a baker. An ICE agent told him they were questioning all men with tattoos. Neri had an autism awareness tattoo in honor of his 15-year-old brother with autism. That's who they're referring to there. An ICE agent told him, we're finding and questioning everyone who has tattoos, and that's why he was arrested. Stunningly, Aaron Melnick says in this thread, After Neri explained his autism tattoos, meaning the ICE agent said he was clean, and yet he was still detained and got sent to El Salvador.
They got quotas they want to hit.
That's it. That's it. They don't care if they're gang members. That's the other thing is like, this is about a show of shock and awe, of force, a way to scare people. It doesn't mean that more isn't coming, but it means that it's almost better, I think, for their purposes because, or honestly, Stephen Miller, whoever's behind this, probably likes the idea that innocent people are rounded up.
100%.
He doesn't think he doesn't think you could possibly be innocent if you're just here in this country on a green card or without proper documentation, because he's a white nationalist.
Here's the other thing to keep in mind. What's really impressive is how incredibly dangerous these Tren de Agua and these MS-13 people that allegedly these gang members are, who were rounded up and shipped to El Salvador. Very fortunate for these ICE officers that there was no absolute, like seemingly no resistance, no gunfighting.
It's invaders after all.
I mean, these invasions were just basically walked into these jails. We're led to believe.
And the Venezuelan immigrants, many of them came into this country because the economy fell apart, in part because of the United States sanctions on it, as we were trying to do like a soft coup in that country to put Guaido in as leader.
Chris Murphy called it a coup.
Yeah, all right. I forgot about that.
We can just do that, and then we wonder why, all these people are displaced, and it must be because they want to invade us because they hate us and our freedoms.
And they're terrorists and criminals, or as opposed to just people trying to seek a better life for themselves. And cops in this country have done this before in under served communities. They've basically said, that they had gang ties as a way to drum up charges against somebody else, particularly black people in this country. This is federalizing that practice. And it's about terrorizing a neighborhood. In this instance, it's just terrorizing an entire population.
We're going to play this. Let's play this Josh Hawley one. I don't remember seeing Josh Hawley at Shul. Maybe he just goes... Maybe he goes to the later service on Yom Kippur. But here is Josh Hawley. And here's what really is one of the most disgusting things about this. Broadly speaking, you don't have to be Jewish to be absolutely disgusted by what's going on when you see that woman in Somerville rolled up, basically disappeared by what looks like, an attack from it would not be hard to see that clip and see it taking place in Iran. I've seen clips that look very similar to that. And because this woman had written an op-ed in, I think it was the Tufts paper.
Yep.
In support of Palestinian rights, to see about 35 Democratic lawmakers, including Elizabeth Warren and others, come out and say ICE needs to return her and release her, and other lawmakers not doing that, particularly in the wake of of Chuck Schumer saying his job is to make sure that the left is not anti-Semitic or whatever it is that he thinks. They are allowing fascism and authoritarianism to grow and flourish and refusing to respond to it, ostensibly out of support against anti-Semitism. It's disgusting. It's so twisted. It is so twisted. It is literally like a Twilight Zone or Black Mirror episode. That in the name of protecting people from anti-Semitism, we are not going to criticize a Gestapo-like tactics.
Exactly.
I mean, it is so twisted.
Exactly.
And it leaves the door open for these right-wing authoritarians.
I was told they were populists and we could work with these guys.
Right-wing authoritarian populists.
Senator, I've been very clear that OCR has a very important.
Pause it for
role
1
with
second.
their-
This is, I should just set this up. It is a guy named Kenneth Stern. He's the attorney for the Bard Center for the Study of Hate. This is out of Bard College. Stern has been supportive of the investigations that have been taking place at Columbia to examine. They did a whole project to examine anti-Semitism, et cetera, et cetera. I suspect Kenneth Stern is probably somewhat invested in there not being anti-Semitism. But here is Josh Hawley.
Senator, I've been very clear that OCR has a very important role, that there are complaints that should go through the process. When you start using the Department of Justice and threatening universities' funding.
You are opposed, I just want to get this on the record. You are opposed to investigating Columbia University and others for anti-Semitism?
No.
That's what you said 6 days ago.
I am not opposed to doing it the right way.
What does that mean, doing it the right way?
Not to claw back funds, not to say we're holding you ransom. We're getting your faculty, Jewish.
You were asked about an investigation for failing to protect Jewish students, and you said that's just weaponizing anti-Semitism. It makes students less safe.
It is when the
I think that's
Department of
crazy.
Justice has a list of places they want to go to. The Senator Markey's question.
Oh, I heard Senator Markey's questions. I heard his whole speech. I thought it was insane. I just want to say for the record, I thought it was totally insane. And I think your positions are similarly insane. I think the idea that we would bend over backwards to hug and kiss and make nice to a pro-Hamas rioter, because that's what Khalil is, and that we would say, we can't remove him, and that makes Jewish students less safe on our campuses? That's nuts.
Senator,
That's nuts.
to Rabbi Saberstein's point, if you look at American history, the times when Jews were most vulnerable was during the Palmer raids in World War I, when there was political.
Jews are vulnerable now on our campuses because of people like Khalil, and I want to say for the record, I'm glad he's gone, and I hope he never comes back.
Joshua Hawley, very, very happy with himself. Completely ahistorical, completely wrong. And it is disgusting that there are Jewish lawmakers who subscribe to what Hawley is saying here. It's disgusting.
I mean, we're seeing the evolution of the conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism leading to more anti-Semitism. This is, of course, what's happening.
Called that guy insane.
I don't know what the religion of the guy that was speaking there was, but Josh Hawley is not a Jewish person. I mean, his last name is Stern. I don't want to make an assumption, but like the confidence with which he lectures his guest about this is just insane, as the right is pretending that they care about free speech.
Stern's one of the co-authors, and I'm not sure how he feels about it today. I imagine maybe a little bit more nuanced, but one of the co-authors of the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which includes criticism of Israel.
Really? Oof.
Also, there's no evidence of Khalil being a rioter or a Hamas supporter
Or any of
being
those
an
protests being
anti-Semite.
anti-Semitic. It's all a lie, so Josh Hawley and his buds can do what they want to do.
Number 646-257-3920 is the number. Let's read some IMs. Majid, by the way, Hawley is Cenk's populist example.
Huh.
Oh, Cenk Uygur.
Gotcha.
Live from the Polymorphic Studio in LA.
Is that still going on?
Apparently, yeah, they took their time out of, this very busy news cycle to make a proclamation.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Russ, will you get me some batteries, some AA batteries up there?
Oh, your mouse trackpad?
My mouse just went.
It was important for them to make sure that everyone knew that at least half of the hosts were to the right of the Democrats on the border, but now apparently they're to the left of the Republicans. So,
it's unclear,
stuck in the
but
middle with you.
they basically
Says Duracell.
They basically did a whole half-hour segment on why they're firing Francesca Fiorentini.
Hold on 1 second. Let me get some batteries here.
Okay, no problem. I didn't
those,
watch
those
it, but-
black boxes that say Duracell. This is the first time.
All right.
Ever seen.
Do you want me to read some IMs?
We will win.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about this whole thing with Cenk, because I was sent this clip, part because Cenk was discussing me. I don't know what went on in at TYT. Over the 10 years that
Francesca was a contractor.
Francesca was
no benefits.
a contractor there. I do know, only because I have firsthand experience about it, that Cenk was completely lying in his characterization of what went on with he and I. I mean, I sort of couldn't quite make out exactly what he was saying. But I will be absolutely clear about this. Cenk and I, in October of 2016, went and had a drink at the Tord conference that I would go to, and in Las Vegas. He invited me for a drink because he wanted to ask me, and this is specifically said, what can I do? And I should say at that time, the TYT liked to pretend like it was some type of network, that it was not a network. We basically had we were basically TYT's client. And for, I think it was 20% of our YouTube revenue, they would do all the optimization.
Mm-hmm.
We were too small of an operation to do it. And so they would do it. And occasionally they'd put our stuff on their Facebook page or something. And Cenk came to me and he said, but he wasn't my employee. He wasn't
employer
or employee or any of it. And Cenk came to me and said, what can I do to tamp down this feud with Jimmy Dore? And I was like, fire him, because his politics suck. And I think Cenk accused me of wanting to call him names. I had a problem with Jimmy Dore on his TYT show saying it didn't matter if Peter Thiel was on the Supreme Court. And then subsequently, when I invited him on to discuss it I was very measured about it until he started acting like a jackass. I said, hey, dude, we could end up with Donald Trump appointing 3 Supreme Court justices.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's response was, oh, we could also have the moon fall into Lake Michigan.
You're trying to manipulate me with fear.
Exactly.
Right. And I think Roe v. Wade was also the subject, and that was basically him saying that it's more likely that the moon falls into Lake Michigan than Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and look what happened.
That was back in the day when he acknowledged 3 Supreme Court justices as a bad thing.
Right. Yes. I mean, sort of vaguely. And that was it. Cenk wasn't reprimanding me, because if Cenk had tried to reprimand me, I would have told him to eat my arse.
Right.
There was no reprimanding. I don't remember when we left TYT, but it was basically when we decided, like, I don't need them to optimize anymore. It wasn't because he fired me, because I was calling Jimmy Dore
I didn't even catch that.
Garbage or whatever it was. They were upset when we left, because we were just paying them money for stuff that we didn't need to really do. And so that was it. And, listen, Cenk is upset because he got 20 million from, was it Katzenberg, and he had gotten a couple of million before then from Buddy Roemer.
And who knows how much
libertarian
paid.
Well,
yeah.
But I'm saying he got all this money invested,
right,
and they blew it. They blew all the money. They didn't know what they were doing. Cenk at the time was desperate to be seen. He kept saying, like, he wanted to be on in airports. And I'm like, dude, you got the biggest YouTube channel. That's going to be the future. And so he was very aspirational about his business. That's fine. I'm very much like 1,000 flowers bloom.
Absolutely.
But the idea that he's talking about, like, somehow he doesn't like to get into name calling. he, a month and a half ago, was calling me all sorts of names. Now,
Low rank grifter.
frankly, I don't care.
Right.
Apparently, he's very sensitive to being called, but we're going to do something here on the program right now. I would like everyone in this office, you can do it off mic, to call me a bitch, and let's see what happens.
Wait, can I just wait? Are you going to remove me from the show?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
You're a bitch.
Oh, God. Oh, God. This is so contrary to the community we're trying to build here. Matt?
I'm supposed to insult you?
Yeah.
You stutter a lot.
No, you're supposed to call him a
Whoa,
bitch.
that one cuts a little close to the bone, buddy.
Use a bad word.
Listen, the
asshole.
Listen, take it easy.
I see up in here.
The point is that they that Cenk is looking for everyone to blame but himself for his current predicament over there. And we held off for a long time and took a lot of criticism for it, for not critiquing what was going on over there. Because largely, I'm not that interested in policing people. But some of the stuff they started to do was really, really bad. And so that's what we started addressing it, and they're lighting themselves on fire over there, and that's all well and good. But they should do it in a way where they're not telling lies that are easily debunked. Now, just because there seems to be a desire to sort of like have all the things out, I just want to tell one other story, because Cenk and I didn't have a tremendous amount of interaction over the years. I've known him since he was on Air America. And I filled in a couple of times, I think, on TYT, 15 years ago or something like that. The one thing that I really struck me in the one sort of like behind the scenes interaction I had with Cenk was at one point, and I had looked it up when, I don't know when exactly this happened. It was during, I think, the first Trump administration. I could look it up again in the emails. I was invited to a meeting with some of the Google, or I think it was Google, government liaison people. And it was me, Cenk, and two of these people. And they were asking us about potential hearings on antitrust that Google might face.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying, with all due respect, I like the fact that, we do make money on YouTube. I appreciate you people. I do think that Google should be broken up into many pieces. And they were like, okay. And I was like, and there's a growing antitrust movement. And I really do hope they're successful in pulling you guys apart. I don't want you guys to lose your jobs. And I don't think you will or whatever, but I just want you to know that. Cenk was not only so dismissive about it, I do specifically remember, he goes, I've read Matt Stoller. I will testify on Google's behalf in front of Congress. Now, it was both hilarious to me that Cenk thought that would be valuable to them.
A little delusional.
Yeah, but the delusional part, I've always sort of understood.
Amusing, yeah.
It always, was part of Cenk's charm.
Yeah.
But I was like, this guy, where are this guy's principles? I mean, I remember the first argument we had on air was about Bill Clinton back in 2008 or 7, because he thought that Bill Clinton was one of the good Democrats, because when Bill Clinton was in office, he was literally a Federalist Society member,
mm-hmm.
a Republican and lawyer. Now, I love converts, and sometimes they have the zeal of converts, but over time, if you are untethered to some type of fundamental ideology, what happens is when you hire people, for instance, you don't even know what to look for, because you don't have that yourself. And so you can hire people who walk in and go oh, these are the principles I believe in. But if they can't articulate them in a way that hits your understanding of why you have these beliefs, they could turn out to be a Jimmy Dore.
Right.
Or a Dave Rubin.
Right.
Or an Anna Kasparian. Or a Michael Tracy.
Brianna Wu.
Or a Brianna Wu.
Who's still on the payroll, I guess, but not Francesca.
Ben Glebe.
Yeah.
Or
Ben Glebe.
Ben Glebe. I mean, all these things can happen.
Yeah. Right. Or honestly, I think you can also see it reflected in the way you treat your employees, right? Like with the efforts to bust the union.
Oh my God, the union busting was so gross.
It was. And even at the time, I received a call from somebody high up in the network asking me not to speak publicly about it. I was young. I kind of have regrets about that I should have spoken up a little bit more publicly, but I was also not making too much money and trying not to rock the boat, but it was a part of the decision that I made, to leave. But it's also, I think, kind of evident in the way that he decided to do this kind of 30-minute monologue criticizing Francesca, who never, that there were opportunities for them to hire her full time, to give her benefits, to value her labor. And instead of doing so, they just kept her on as a contractor. She took a check from them, sure. But then to make a whole show out of banning her from the network and doing this video about somebody who has very little power. You are the employer. She is the employee. She's the contractor. And to throw her under the bus like that, especially when her show has like a fraction of their subscriber count, I really do think it speaks to the workplace environment that's becoming more and more evident for people here.
And I will say, like, this is going to be the last segment that we do about this kind of drama. I suspect it won't be the last segment we do about their takes.
Right.
Because literally every other segment we've ever done about them has been about a take.
Right.
That we think is not good to have. But we should also say, when is this happening? The 31st?
Oh, yes. The poly market bet is expiring. So you've got until the 31st. Although now it's down to 1% chance.
It's down to 1%. We really blew it because this could have been like, I could have had like so much opportunity if I could have like somehow, and I know exactly who I would have borrowed the money from.
Like crypto?
Yeah, scroll up to the question part. Although we can't, it's not
At
legal
one point
in the
it was
United
37.
States.
Well, I know people who live, in Europe.
Wait, Americans can't even bet on this?
No, it's not legal in the United States. And TYT sold the naming rights of their studio, which they crowdfunded from their audience back in the day. They turned around and sold it to Polymarket. So did Kamala buy ads on the Majority Report? It's now down to a 1% chance. That's unfortunate.
Now, here's the irony of this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put this in the chat, guys. Here's the irony of this. You know how that dynamic of like every right-wing accusation is a confession?
Mm-hmm.
The sometimes, and this is the thing, is that like, and I think everyone is subject to sort of like ambition taking over and chipping away at any type of principles that you have. It is a danger. It is very danger. It is a huge danger in every business, I would imagine. Certainly in, YouTube, where every, of every click that you're going to get at any minute and this and that. And certainly like in this where like we have an email list. We put ads on our email list. We do that. But from day one, we have always vowed we're never going to sell or rent out our email list to anybody else. Just because I personally find it annoying and whatnot, but I don't think there's something wrong with the practice of doing that. I do think that there is something wrong with the practice of doing that and then falsely claiming that other people are doing it.
Right.
And as if it's problematic.
Yeah. It's interesting because I knew that this was the case, but I wanted to check again that I was recalling it correctly. So I just put into Twitter, I think it was TYT Biden email list. So you can go to 2020. This is probably around the time that I received a call from someone high up in the network asking me not to speak publicly about this.
Wait, was it about this or about the union busting?
Oh, that happened twice. So it was about this. That TYT was selling its email list seemingly covertly to the Biden campaign in 2020. So this guy,
Like the exact thing that they accused us of doing.
Yeah.
That's the point that I find.
Isn't that interesting?
Listen, I don't like. Again, I'm not judging that practice. We don't do it because I personally find it annoying to like sign up for one thing and have it be sold to somewhere else. And so we don't do that. We'll put an ad from Sunset Lake in like the AM Quickie, but that's a newsletter that we sign up and we have advertisement. But I would never sell the email list to somebody else because then it's out of your control and God knows where it ends up.
Let alone to a political campaign, because we're supposed to be a show that's independent of the politicians that we're trying to be critiquing.
I would run if Bernie's campaign came to us and said, "Will you do a whole email about how Bernie's great?" I would say yes.
Probably, yeah.
But I'm not going to give you my email list.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you my email list.
Right.
I mean, they disclose it here, but it's interesting, their disclosure. Go to the next page. This is the Biden.
This is the screenshot from 5 years ago now.
Yeah, 2020. But here's down at the bottom here. You can see like the above advertisement for Biden for president been sent to you via the Young Turks email list. At TYT, the bulk of our funding comes from you and other TYT fans. Now, that's also a lie. The bulk of their funding came from Katzenberg, certainly by 2020.
Didn't go to employee raises or bonuses or anything like that. I wonder where it went.
And that's what allows us to maintain our independence as an alternative media outlet. On occasion, we forge partnerships with select advertisers as a source of additional. We do not share your information with advertisers, and the views expressed in this email do not constitute any endorsement or recommendation by the Young Turks. I mean, like, it's hard to trust it when they're like sort of being a little cagey about the $20 million investment they had in there. Now, I don't begrudge them that either. I don't have those kind of ambitions to become, like the world's largest. That's not
right.
Just.
We just want to do our show the best we can.
A matter of taste.
Yeah.
But the problem is with taking money is that sometimes if things go sideways, that money becomes a source of pressure and you start to do things that is really more about that. This is when the flights to El Salvador took place, Cenk had a tweet that was like, I think we should be removing these things, but you need to listen to a court.
The criminals.
The criminals, but we need to be listening to a court. We are not in an era where parsing things this thinly is in any way effective. When you do that, you are obscuring what is the fundamental issue here. That flight would not have been right, even if they were unable to get to a court to enjoin them from flying there. Nothing about that flight was right. Nothing. There was no due process. You don't know who's on that flight. When you start having to do if, to justify the actions of an authoritarian administration, you have lost the thread.
Right.
And they're going to keep doing this. And they're going to keep talking about Max left. And I'm not going to go on the stage with Dr. Phil because he's a Nazi. Well, listen, Dr. Phil is not technically a Nazi, but he is out there like, I'm going to do everything I can to promote going around with the immigration officials to show everybody how dangerous these people are. I mean, and when you leave that stage, if they're not mad at you, you haven't done your job. We're going to go get a beer.
Yeah.
Listen, put your money where your mouth is. I will debate you on all these issues.
Right.
We made that clear from day one. I invited you on before you decided that I had called you a Nazi because I used an example from an Errol Morris film. Not even in reference to you. Before that, I had reached out and said, come on the show, and he flipped out.
And that's beyond what you said, even though he's misinterpreting it, is beyond the pale. But apparently nothing Charlie Kirk said or did, or Dr.
Charlie Kirk is a virulent, has said virulently anti-Semitic things.
And racist things about how he
And
wouldn't
nationalist
trust
things.
if there was a
And
black
racist,
pilot.
of course. I
And,
mean,
and it's okay. You know, you went on Jubilee and that did well. And, you know, whatever, us going on Tim Pool because we go in with the object of being adversarial, because really the only way that you win against the right is when you defeat them in debate and you go at them aggressively.
That's what else is funny, because basically Cenk's been doing all this attention-seeking stunts in the Trump era, the second Trump era, but it's Sam who's making the splash with like the Jubilee thing. Like videos of Sam Seder debating MAGA supporters viewed millions of times.
well, and the point is like, where is the evidence that he has somehow like forged a middle way with these people?
A third way?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the funny part was like he is in lockstep half the time with the same Democratic establishment that he claims his movement is. It's just funny how that happened.
He said Josh Shapiro was the most progressive VP pick when Kamala Harris was considering him, and over Walz, over Bashir. It's bizarre. You've got to wonder, you know, what necessarily, you know, is behind it, I guess.
Sometimes, like I say, the ambition associated with where you want your show to be overcomes your
Judgment.
Your judgment. But it also, the other factor is like, you know, just why are you in this? What are you doing in this?
Right.
And that's how sometimes you hire over and over again the wrong people.
Yep. And it's okay if they're
Or the good people end up going like, I can't be here anymore.
That was kind of, you know, what happened with me and what happened. My friend Dan from the internet, other folks, and Francesca knew that it was likely that, you know, when she decided to speak her mind a bit, that tie would be severed. But she's doing great work over at Zateo. People should check out the Bituation Room. And I guess to put a pin in it here, this was just from, when was this? Like a few months ago, January. The way that the show seems to be downplaying the Trump administration, just a few seconds of this, because it was disproving within weeks that what the Trump administration is actually doing.
You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'll start that there.
I know that Francesca Fiorentini is currently attacking you about this as if Donald Trump is unique. He's novel compared to past presidents, certainly a special kind of evil that we've never seen before. In her mind, these are the gulags that she was warning about. But in fact, this has been a longstanding practice. You can be against that practice, but Donald Trump isn't doing anything new here.
Okay. I think she was specifically talking about Guantanamo. Now, A, progressive have been railing against Guantanamo since day one. B, this practice is unique because we've never taken people who are one step on a U.S. territory and put them down there in a sort of an extrajudicial state. So she wrong on the merits, wrong on the facts, wrong on the analysis, and then also. Let's just zoom out a little bit. I think it's pretty hard at this point, even now that we're a full 68 days into this administration, to not say that Donald Trump is uniquely authoritarian and bad for U.S. society.
Well, she was also mocking the idea that Project 2025 would be implemented prior to the election, which we were starting to become more critical of their coverage then because we thought they were doing harm.
And let's be clear.
I mean, frankly, to downplay that prior to the election, given what we're seeing the effects of that now, is really inexcusable.
The key word is mocking.
Mocking, yeah.
Because it wasn't just like, you know, I think maybe the case about Project 2025 is overstated. You know, I think there's some nuance here. I think there are some cross currents in the constituencies of Trump, and you know, he would need a supermajority in the Senate or something like that. No. The whole thing was part of a larger effort that was happening on the right. I don't know that she was coordinating it with them. Maybe she's just taking her cues or whatnot to push back on the notion that Project 2025 was the agenda. Remember, this is when Trump was like, some of it I've never read. I don't know. Like, I mean, so she was engaging in a manner to literally misinform and to in a very consistent way of what was going on the right. Now, I'm not saying that she was in coordination with them or whatnot. I get the sense that like she's taking her cues maybe from some of these people or whatnot. I mean,
hello,
totally. Yeah. I mean,
she has some friends,
but
some friends on the right.
I don't care about Cenk's like sort of motivations. I don't care about her motivations. Again, this is, I think, the only one that we've talked about, like, sort of drama or whatnot. I don't care about that shit. Honestly, I don't. I have a million other things to think about. But we're going to push back on bullshit that comes from there. In the same way that we push back on bullshit that comes from Dave Rubin, bullshit that comes from Jimmy Dore, bullshit that comes from Ben Shapiro, bullshit that comes from Crackdowns. No, do we see every clip? No. Do we have the ability to see all that stuff? No. But that's what we do. That's one of the things that we do. And so when they are pushing some type of like bullshit narrative, we're going to call that out. And to some extent, there's more of an investment for us to do this because we still probably share, although it's increasingly small, an audience. As they move further to the right on not every topic. I know that there's this notion of like populism and it's so blinkered and whatnot. But, and I guess as we move max left.
Yeah. And we also don't claim to represent the whole left, which is the straw man that Cenk uses there. Because
well, it's a little bit of projection there because he feels a little bit territorial, and a bunch of people like Zateo and us are moving in on the TYT.
Only I represent the left. But like it is, I think, unfortunate because we're going to have to call that out because they have over 6 million subscribers. I'm not sure how many people are, watching, but like. That's a huge base of people who may tune into politics kind of casually and they subscribe, maybe they're kind of center left or liberal or whatever, with the impression that this network was a progressive one. And so when you hear the parsing about trans rights or when you hear right-wing talking points about immigration like we just played, that has the capacity to maybe change the minds of some people in their audience who are not necessarily that tuned in. And our project is to try to get people to be more educated, to learn about left-wing ideas, and to build our country in a more positive direction. And that's why if you play Dave Rubin games, you win Dave Rubin prizes.
I also just want to say one last thing that they keep touting. In 1965, there was a Gallup poll in February of 1965 where
which one are you referring to?
There's a Gallup poll in 1965 where there was you saw where I lost that figure. Well, I guess the point is that in the United States we have a history of polling being against civil rights at certain junctures during civil rights.
I have one here that I actually have saved on my desktop that the views of MLK during his life. In 1966...
When did they peak versus when did they fall?
They peaked in August 2011, where 94% of people, this is Pew, but it was in 63, he had a 41% favorability, 37% unfavorability. But in 66, August... he had a 63% unfavorability rating with the American public.
So his unfavorables went up from 63 to 66. That was because he started talking about Vietnam and political economy and poverty.
Right. And so, I mean, we can probably find...
What about the abundance?
I mean, look,
abundance agenda.
61 to 21% Southerners felt the government was moving too quickly, then rather about right in 1965 on civil rights.
Right.
You can just go on, group after group after group. And the idea that people are voting in this country, in the center and in the left, and in Democrats, are voting based upon trans women in sports is so baby-brained. Aside from the fact that, like, you could say, like, 80% of people don't want trans women in trans sports, is wholly irrelevant if it's like the 30th thing they're voting on or the 21st thing that they're voting on.
Yeah.
And this is aside from like even the moral argument of civil rights for everybody. As a purely political matter, the idea that you would flip on this stuff because of polling makes you look like a weak ass bitch.
Yep.
It is the Josh Marshall bitch slap theory of politics, which is why Democrats were so at the mercy of George W. Bush, is because if you can't stick up for what you believed 2 years ago, how are you going to stick up for me?
It's Kamala Harris style.
Yeah.
And
or what Newsom's doing right now.
And it communicates a weakness. It communicates a lack of belief and sincerity when you say, well, the polling is this way. I mean, I can understand the idea of like strategically, do we want to introduce this legislation now versus later? But I'm sorry. It is detrimental to your electoral ambitions as a party to abandon civil rights for people because there is like, vague polling against this. And I say vague only because if it's the 21st thing that people are voting on, I don't care if it's 100% to zero. That's not what is going to dictate the outcome of these elections.
You see the reverse with gun control, for example, right? You have wide swaths of the country that agree on gun control, but it's not necessarily something that motivates people to change their vote, except for that small fraction of the amosexuals who will vote.
Oh, they're certainly on the right.
But with the majority opinion, like this
even when you have children being killed after killed, 30 kids mowed down, still they're not voting on that.
Right. And this is the popularism weakness that is being advocated by guys like Matt Iglesias. And so what's odd is that it's this critique of Democrats, but their politics are seemingly very aligned with the most centrist milquetoast Democrats
Swazi
in the country, like Swazi, or writers like Matt Iglesias, which is about essentially just following what the polling says. Because I mean, who cares about principles when you get a poll that shows that perhaps we need to do some work on communicating this issue? I guess that's over. I guess we don't have to worry about it anymore.
The best politicians know this.
Yes, you have agency over polling.
Strong and wrong.
Right. You have Republicans know this.
We can write.
Republicans know this. Republicans have been able to change polling just by sticking to basically their core messaging. And if we had an equivalent on the left, then we wouldn't have to be worrying about this kind of thing. And the fact that they're even engaging in this and letting polling lead their principles as opposed to principles leading their political analysis, I think kind of says everything about the state of that network.
I mean, part of it's a skill issue. They don't want to have to stand up for principles when times are tough, because that's a hard thing to do.
Yep.
All right, that went on far longer than we had anticipated. That's the other thing. We don't spend hours doing clips and getting clips to do a big monologue on this. I didn't even think we were going to talk about this today.
I got a text from somebody saying that the dude opened his show with it.
Today?
Yesterday. The dude opened his show with a half-hour monologue that made Francesca look amazing.
It was uploaded
oh boy.
1 day ago. Let me put this up.
This is their best viewed video in quite a while.
Their best viewed video, yes. Jack explains why he's removing a contributor. Go to wide. A contributor from TYT Network. That's 250,000 views. And the comments, I would say, is the first one. Francesca is 100%
Wait, this is not cut off. We can't see it on our screen.
Oh,
just zoom out a little bit more. Yeah. I mean,
Pull it up so we can see the comments. Pull it over. There.
Matt, can you go to top or change sort by? Yeah, top comments, not newest.
There's number one. There's a reason TYT has lost so many subscribers over the past several months and have since flatlined. Anna and Jenk have taken a bad road. Glad I unsub. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Ooh, there's a us mention. Someone branching out to
Hassan,
us.
Secular Talk, Francesca. Shout out to all those folks doing great work.
I mean, I'm genuinely sorry for all the people that are having to go through the psychic issue that this is causing because people you trusted for decades. Jeez.
This is brutal.
Well, never read the comments.
Oh my God.
Is this what Anna was talking about when she's saying we're afraid to be afraid of your audience? Because ours is a lot nicer to us than that one is.
Yeah.
Whew. All right, we're going to take one phone call. I apologize. I really thought we were going to take more phone calls today. I mean, I know I say that every day. Calling from a 508 area code. You are the first and last phone caller of the day, but the last one of the week.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Nice. My name is Vitor. I'm just calling from Framingham, Massachusetts.
From where? Framingham? From Framingham.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Near the old Chateau de Ville, by any chance?
That's past my age, Sam.
All right.
But sorry, all jokes aside, the point that I really wanted to get to was an experience that I had in Lynn. I was just visiting and going to a Jimi Hendrix concert, and I was smushed between this
Wait a
older
second.
lady
You went to a Jimi Hendrix concert?
He died in the
Yeah, it was one of
60s.
those- Yeah. Nah, it was just a cover band.
Oh,
Marcus
okay,
King
all right.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
and you don't know the Chateau de Ville?
No, I'm well into my 20s. But
Okay.
still an old head here, but to the point that I was calling in for, I was sitting in between this older lady who had, we were chatting a bit, and I kind of wanted to do my own thing, just enjoy my nachos, and she goes in and she discloses to me that she's a Republican, right? And the thing with me is my family is Brazilian, immigrated to Framingham in the 80s. So I'm also, I don't appear Brazilian, but she just went on a rant about immigrants and talking about the Columbia student, claiming that she was a member of Hamas. And it was my first time really experiencing a Trump supporter who's been kind of delusional by years and years of, even dating back to Reagan of, us versus them. And it just stunk. So my 2 points that I want to ask you guys is, one, what are some tips and I guess some ways to handle those conversations when people like me encounter them? And two, I just wanted to hear your point about just, the exploitation of the immigrant community, especially with Latin American and Brazilians, providing so much capital in states like Massachusetts, but being demonized for quote unquote crimes that they are.
What did you say to her? Did you say anything to her?
I did. I felt a little bit uncomfortable, but
Well, I would imagine.
yeah, it was definitely a scenario where I didn't feel comfortable. But after years and years of watching people like you guys, Hassan, I thought I was ready to aim back, right? But I just kind of froze. So
Well, I think in that situation, I mean, because you're first generation, right? I think you should say like, I think, you say like, well, what do you think about me? And get her take on you. I mean, I think like the way to influence someone in that particular situation, the asset you have them is that like their assumption of who an immigrant is wrong. And you have the opportunity to sort of show them that. I mean, you could say, look, immigrants, undocumented immigrants add literally billions of dollars to Social Security. And they don't take it out because they're not legal. That their crime rate is less than, that of citizens. That innovation, exposure to other cultures is what spurs innovation. People being exposed to things that they don't regularly see is helpful in their development. It creates a stronger community. All of those things. But I really think that, like, on some level, you can say, like, what do you think about me? I mean, my folks are immigrants. I'm first generation. I've grown up around immigrants. And then all of a sudden they have to sort of like question their assumptions. Look, there's only so much you're going to be able to do in any interaction. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself. But I think that's, that can be enough to sort of just make them, all you need to do is make them question one assumption they have. Just even question it. And that begins like that. Sometimes that one questioning of one assumption cracks open a door.
Thank you, guys. I really need to hear that, and I'll definitely, I know it's no pressure, but definitely kind of put that in my tool bag. So thank you guys so much.
I would Google the Chateau de Ville. It's a real shame you don't know. I saw
I will.
Saw Rodney Dangerfield there twice. It was fantastic. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, no worries. Have a good one, guys.
It's a venue?
It was, apparently. Ladies and gentlemen, that sound indicates that we are done with our phone call portion of the show for the day and the week. I have got to move here. So we've got a bunch of... Rob from Dedham says the Chateau de Ville is now multiple furniture stores in the front and a truck rental company in the back. Not to date you, Sam, but it closed around 40 years ago? Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Hey, that's a little uncomfortable.
1984.
Majority Report. Do you think Tim Pool being added to the White House press pool is a coincidence, or does someone lobby for him? YouTube had told us that they are that they're doing that the White House press pool is going to put people like that in. We could even play. Would you like to go down there?
Sure.
You seem really excited.
Let's check it out.
I'd like to get down to DC. I'll go do a day.
Matt will be our stringer.
I'll make friends with Ducey.
Gerald from New Orleans, another week, another 5 days of not having my call get through. Sam, I'm starting to think you don't value or our entirely one-sided parasocial relationship. Gerald from New Orleans, I can't tell you how much that's not true. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. A lot of time. An uncomfortable amount of time. People have talked to me in the office about it. Mortified Penguin, Emma caught strays in that bullcrap video too. Of course, it was a clip of you making an awesome point standing up for trans people.
Yeah, I really could not care less, to be honest. And it was just good for Francesca. Like, all of her, she looked awesome, and glad you
It was
played
sort of a weird thing to do when you're talking about we're letting go of someone not because of their political views, but because they're rude to me.
Right. To include
Why
me
would you include you and your political views in it?
Probably I would have just tweeted out, like, good luck, Francesca, on all your future.
Yeah, like, we appreciate you working with us. I mean, but
good
also,
luck at Zateo.
But also, she, if John wants to have her on, he should be able to do that. And I don't know. It's a little weird to just, like, ban her without his consent. I don't know.
I'm the boss.
It is weird. I've been banned from Fox News.
Right.
It is weird to get banned from an entire network. I mean, it's one thing to say, like, I don't want to have somebody on the show. It's another to say, like, the people who work for us can't have somebody on the show. It doesn't. It's inconsistent with the idea of we want a lot of ideas.
Right. Or having a beer with people you disagree with.
Imagine Sam telling me I couldn't have somebody on Left Reckoning.
I'll tell you this afterwards.
Okay.
I don't want to. But there is I actually have a funny story about that.
Oh.
All right. Val Shells. When are we getting I Am the Left and Max Leftist on t-shirts? We've definitely
Oh my
got
gosh.
it. Julie, get on it. Max
The
Leftist.
Max left.
I'm staying in the race.
Jonathan Armstead, this Cenk stuff has been an issue for a while. In the summer of 2016, I was getting upset with his takes on affirmative action, Black Lives Matter and how he was letting Jimmy say nonsense. I told Uchi Wally, and he said it was a coincidence, as Sam had the same problems, and he encouraged me to listen to the show. I haven't listened to TYT since. Also, you have a better format. Your interviews with writers, activists are something Jenk says he won't do because the algorithm doesn't support it. To this day, when I meet TYT fans, I encourage them to make the switch. That show is just the 700 Club with more frequent fundraising appeals. Tim Pool. Sam, can you send me your discount code for Hello Tushy? I've been shopping for a replacement bidet, but the tariffs are really eating into my budget. Kyle Leck. Regarding Francesca's criticism of Anna's coverage on crime and homelessness, there was a story she did about 6 months ago before I canceled my membership. That was so bad, I emailed TYT about the errors, and it took several months and multiple emails to get anything other than an automated response. Frankly, I don't think she read the study she was reporting on, but instead read some right-wing hacks reporting on it, or at best, read the summary and decided it was wrong because it wasn't consistent with her prior beliefs, and then mischaracterized study's methodology because she didn't understand basic statistics. It's a bit old, but I found it to be a glaring example of Anna putting her ideology ahead of her so-called reporting.
She went on Jillian Michaels and said she's improving her media diet that misled her for the past 5 or so years by introducing National Review to it. So,
Philly Cheesesteak, isn't HHS taking over the school vaccinations from the Department of Education? I don't know about that. Snarkorsky, so true that normal people don't have the time or inclination to research every news story every day. You need to tell them. Yet Dem leadership and Blue MAGA don't think that's necessary. They prefer to scold voters for being uninformed like their voters' parents or teachers. These Dem dipshits should never go into sales or politics. I mean, the other thing is that people don't understand that there is a benefit to the fact that there is a significant amount of people who don't necessarily engage in politics, and that being that you have an outsized influence.
Yep.
The reality is that really, and the right has figured this out, 30% of the population being extremely highly motivated is better than 40% who may agree with you but are not. And there was a flip insofar as like they added, at least under Trump. Trump's able to do this. I don't know that Republicans broadly are. Getting people who are barely interested in politics just because he cut through the noise in some fashion. All right, 5 more, and then we got to go. Andrew from MEC. Sam, can we get Andy Kindler on the show? It's been too long. Yeah, you know, we haven't had like a second guest on Fridays. I mean, we had obviously Laverne on.
Yeah, last week.
Was it last week?
Mm-hmm.
But we got out of, like, we haven't had Matthew Film Guy on.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much news. Like, we can't get to it in the first hour.
Yeah.
But
I'm hoping to get back. I thought that we would get back to normal, but it's not. But yes, at one point we will. Deepak, live in New York 21st, the sticker mule asshat was threatening to run as a third party candidate and split the MAGA vote. She had no clear successor and anointed no one, and now dealing with the fallout of that. Plus, on the plus side, given her history, she'll spend as much time in her district as she would have if she was appointed UN ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 2 more. Liz Cheney. It's the same thing with their immigration principles. You guys should have Kyle Kalinske or David Dole on for a Casual Friday. We should do that. We've had Kyle on. We've had both of them on.
I've had Kyle on. I'm not sure about David, but David's great. People should check out his show, David Dole.
All right, 2 more. Your boy Blue. Sam, Waltz is the leak in this case by be 100% Goldberg in the chat on purpose. Oh, no way. No way. That would, I don't understand what the logic behind that would be. 2 more. Trombone Guy. Thank you for your support of Francesca. I was a surpriser. I was a subscriber 347 of TYT, but dumped it after I got sick of Kasparian's Karen bit. You nailed it today. Jenk should retire. He made his money. He is a megalomaniac disgrace. And the final I am of the week. the best leftist. I used to be on committees for the city which I live. In those committees, in all city businesses, you're not allowed to even discuss the issues outside of a meeting that have a quorum. All city business needs to be documented. It would help if people got involved and learned this stuff. Matt, you, Emma, great job this week. Great job, Dorsey and Isaac and Maria and Chris and Corey. And on Monday, we'll also have a new announcement of we have a new AM Quickie writer. A lot of changes. Great job this week, everybody. And Kyle, of course, see you on Monday.